Hello everyone, welcome back to the next episode of my Minecraft Charlie and the Chocolate Factory commentary series where I talk about the build I made of the 2005 factory. In the last episode, we talked about the Chocolate River ride, and we left off right before going into the inventing room. So that's what we're mostly going to be talking about today, and then we'll probably move on a little bit as well because there's not a whole lot to talk about in here. So, just like the movie, this room actually isn't too big compared to most of the others, and it's actually a box, which again is rare because I talked about it in one of my videos that most of the interior rooms of the factory are either a sphere or sort of like a teardrop shape, and there are very little boxes and rectangles around. But the best I could tell from the movie, this set they used is actually just a black box, so that's what houses everything. And I tried my best to add in everything that I saw in the scenes from the movie. So that's what all of these iron block pipes are. There was a scene where they come through the door like this, and they had some pipes over here in this configuration as well as over here. Now some of them, like these pipes over here, I just sort of freelanced myself to fill up some of the space. And I did that because there actually aren't that many inventions or contraptions, I guess you could say, in the room itself. They really only had a few of them that they showed in the movie. So I did my best to put them in the spots where they were shown. So this is the Everlasting Gobstopper machine. I think it looks pretty good. I think it's pretty accurate. I really like especially the little spout into the tank here. Over here is the Magic Chewing Gum machine. Not super happy with this. My plan is eventually to go back and sort of redo most of this to make it a little bit more accurate. Admittedly, I just sort of threw this together because this is the last thing I made in this room, and I just wanted to move on to the next thing. But I think it looks good enough. And you can see in this dome, or this sphere here, I'm using some more of the colored water mods. This is actually the luminous water, which gives it the light that you're seeing, so it's not just a dark circle that isn't very vibrant. So I wanted to make sure it was nice and lit up, and it's nice because I don't have to rely on any other light source, so it looks very clean. And I did the same thing in this over here. I just used the blue water that is lit. I can't remember if this particularly was in the movie or if I just added that in myself. I think this is something I just added in myself actually. But all the rest of the contraptions are from the movie, like these right here. Not really sure what they are. This sphere with this design is also in the movie, but the part underneath it was not. So this is where I really use a lot of the colored water. I think it looks pretty cool. So once again, when the world download goes out, it's really important that you're using this mod, or else none of these effects will be working right. Moving on from there over to these funny looking things. These are actually also in the movie, and they're supposed to replicate the bowl-shaped candy coating machines that spin around and coat candy with the flavor. And they're actually machines that are used in real life by real candy manufacturers. But I did the best I could to recreate it. They should really be more at like a 45-degree angle like this, not straight up and down. But due to the space constraints, it would be really hard to replicate that in a reasonable size, only using blocks. So this is what I went with. I think they look good enough. And then over here is the hair toffee machine. I think that looks pretty good. Just using some brewing stands to simulate the little smoke coming off. And then really the last main machine or point of interest in the room is this cool looking thing, and I'm really happy with how this turned out. This is my favorite thing in here, with how it snakes up, sort of like a spiral staircase with all the different little spheres with the different colored concrete here. So I really like that a lot. And yeah, there's not really a whole lot to this room. Like I said, it is smaller. And one thing I also want to come back and add eventually are some moving parts. Most other people who have recreated this factory have some sort of redstone contraptions that go about in here, and I don't have any of that right now just because I wanted to move on to the next project. But I think I'm going to try to add in some moving stuff. It would be kind of hard to do that with the things that were moving in the movie. They're not really things that can be recreated easily in Minecraft or at all, but I want to try to add some movement in. But with that out of the way, the next thing we can look at is what I've been calling the main corridor of the factory, although it'll probably end up losing that name to just being a generic corridor, which is why I have that right here. So this is how you get on to the next part of the tour. So we're going to go do that now. Walking through the door here, we come into this hallway corridor. And this might be familiar from the movie. This is sort of the red wall scene where you see them walking around. Now, this is accurate to the movie, this wall, but the room itself is a little bit inaccurate. The shape is generally the same here, because this is really the only angle we get from the movie where they're walking through this area, where there's a room here and there's a room back there, which aren't built yet, but they will eventually be completed. So we come through here, and then in my version, it goes to a straight hallway. And this part of the factory is not shown. We just go right from this shot where they're walking, basically right into the nut room. It's just implied they've been walking for a while. And due to the way that my factory is laid out, I was unable to continue this curvature like I would have liked to be able to, going all the way up. Or in the movie, they're actually walking down slightly. But because we are already at negative 45 in the world and the max is negative 63, I needed a lot more space for the nut room. So if I were to continue this walkway going in a slight downgrade, it just wouldn't give me enough room. So I had to do the opposite, and the pathway actually goes up. Because there's not too many scenes from the movie of this area, I was okay with making that difference. It's normally something I don't like to do, though, by deviating too much. But once again, the inventing room is right through this door. So this whole wall here is, basically the back side of the inventing room, which is why I was unable to continue this going up, because we would literally break right through, and it just wouldn't work. So I did the best I could to recreate this with the space I had, and then we go down this straight corridor, and I tried to make it look as in spirit as I could of the movie. This is just an elevator stop for the corridor. Right now it only goes to the chocolate room. I need to add a bunch more stops in here later. And then we reach to this staircase. So presently, this hallway is where I have most of my additional rooms built and where they're going to be made. I was talking about just a minute ago how in the movie, once they come out of that door and then they go around that red wall, it actually slowly goes down. But because of the space limitations, I had to do the opposite and make mine go up. So that's what this hallway is. So in the movie, this long hallway is not here. Just pretend this is right up against the red. And then instead of going up, it should go down. But once again, because of space constraints, I had to go up. And I did my best to make it look like the movie. The floor is like a dark gray, and then the wall to this side is white, and then the wall to this side in the movie is the same stone that the factory exterior is made out of. And then they also walk by some lights that are right around the floor, where in the movie it's by their foot level and it has different colored lights. It's kind of hard to do that in Minecraft unless I literally just had one block, which I didn't want to do. So I made them a little bit bigger and added in these plus sign lights. And every so often you see one and they're all different colors. There's also some at the top as well. And this is just a giant spiral staircase. Essentially, the main purpose is to lead you up to the nut room. Now this elevator right here I originally put in. This is the very first elevator stop I made. There's really nothing in here except the chocolate room right now, but its original purpose, before I decided what I was going to do with all the elevator stops, was just to serve as a way to get to the top of this staircase without having to walk, because this takes a few minutes to walk to the top of. So my intention was you just hit a button and teleport to the top to skip all this if you wanted to. But because there is so much space here, this goes up probably over 100 blocks. It gives me a lot of opportunities to have rooms. Just like in the movie, you see them walk by some rooms. So I think I have planned to have about 12 of them that take up this tower. And then eventually I would like to add more of these towers off to the side to have more rooms. And this is how I plan to house a lot of them. But I have them strategically placed out so I have enough space on the outside of this cylinder here to have room to actually build all of them. So I think I have 4 of these rooms complete. 4 or 5, maybe 5. And so I have about half of them left to go. We'll go inside this one. This is the Chocolate Money Bank, and once again, these rooms are from the official concept art list. But there are no pictures of these rooms out on the internet because they were never made for the movie. So it's really just up to the interpretation of the person building them, you know, if you or anyone else decide to make these rooms to what those rooms look like. So Chocolate Money Bank was one that stuck out to me. I basically just envisioned it being a literal bank that anyone can walk into and get deposited chocolate. I had a few other ideas for this room, such as having just giant like chocolate piggy banks, but I wanted to go a little bit more literal with this one. So we walk in here, and it's just kind of, I wanted it to be a really clean looking bank, like a stereotypical bank, sort of fancier looking. I ended up using black windows, and then on the ceiling I used black and white because in the movie there's a lot of black and white stripes throughout. And then it's a pretty simple little room here, nothing too crazy. You can walk up to the teller machine, which is like a chocolate pipe that's flowing through here with chocolate pipes that go down. And then you can hit it here, and then it dispenses a cocoa bean. And then these are just supposed to be Oompa Loompas that are working in the bank that are walking around. So yeah, that's pretty much the Chocolate Money Bank. I like it. It was a simple, fun little thing to make. This is one of the only other rooms in the factory that is not the inventing room that is actually a rectangle shape. And I just did that just for a little bit of variation because basically every other room that will be made is a sphere of some kind. So I thought a bank was a good candidate for a rectangular room, so that's why I put it in here. Over here is the glass elevator stop, so you can get here quickly from other areas of the factory. I'm gonna go back into the main corridor, and then we just continue to go up and up and up. So the Wonkadelic room is one that I actually showed in my very first video, where it was just sort of like a little cinematic movie I made. I had a shot where I was walking by the Wonkadelic room, and you can see it's under construction. But I'm actually planning to just completely get rid of this and replace it with something else. Not really finding the creativity to create that room the way I would like, so it's probably just going to get replaced, and maybe later down the line it'll get put in somewhere else. The residence, so this is basically just going to be sort of like a private bedroom with probably, you know, a sitting area that's just meant for Wonka himself. So I'm going to do my best to decorate that room in the style that I feel like, you know, he would personally have for himself. And then, yeah, we just keep going on up. Once you finally get to the top of the staircase, you are greeted by the final room, which is the nut room. So we're going to go on in here. And then this is another area where I had to add my own hallway. I basically had to get from point A to point B due to some ways that I hid the glass elevator ride that comes after the nut room. I basically built giant boxes that it sits inside of, and I needed to bridge the gap from here to there so it was hidden well. So I just used that, plus the fact that in the movie you don't actually see this area of how they get into the room. You're just shown a shot of them walking up to it, and then you're immediately inside. So I figured that was a good enough reason that I could add in this hallway without it being considered incorrect, because you never see it from the first place. So you go in through this door, and you're greeted by the nut room. And I'm really, really happy with how this turned out. This is one of my favorite areas in the factory that I made. And every time I build the nut room in my recreations, I'm always happier with how it turns out each time. And this is definitely no exception. I'm really pleased with it. And it's actually a very fast and simple room to build, especially if you're on Java Edition where you can use World Edit, which is what I used here. All you really have to do is find the center of where you want it to be, and then you can spawn in circles, and you can just basically make the entire wall structure, you know, in just a few minutes. So I really wanted to make sure I paid attention to the details to get the shape and the curves of the room as best as I could, because it's not just a cylinder. It has some slopes of varying degree until you get to the flat cylinder part. So that's the walls, and then here are the sort of iconic black windows that line the room. And then I really wanted to make sure I paid attention to the ceiling, because I think this is probably the one thing that people have the hardest amount of time with, is making sure you get the proper amount of rings, where there should be 3 of them, and then having the light that comes through with the center nut disposal system hanging from the center. And then I have the little spokes in here. These should be more numerous, because in the movie they're a lot thinner. Obviously they're not giant blocks, so they go what really it should be every few blocks, but just for simplicity's sake, and I didn't want to look too busy, I only added in them every so often here. And then yeah, this is the center part here. I just have some lights sitting up here to light the whole thing up, because normally you're never gonna see that. And then I used fences to act as the pipes that go from here into the little nut disposal systems for the squirrels. And it's honestly one of the harder things to do, because I've seen it done many different ways. Some people use blocks, some people use end rod or stone walls. I don't recall if I've seen people use fence before, but that's what I decided to use. I thought it gave off the best look. It's just a really hard shape to do no matter what in Minecraft, because it's completely on an angle and it goes up and down, and it's just a lot, so it's never gonna look perfect. And I think this is the best that I was able to come up with on how to do that. And then yeah, they go into these little systems here, and then these pipes are just to sort of simulate the little pipes that come down and go to the squirrels. Due to space, and I didn't want to look too cluttered, I don't have the piping that goes horizontally here like in the movie. I just think this gives off the general effect to the degree that I want without looking too cluttered. And then I just used cats to act as the squirrels. So they're sitting on their chairs, and I wasn't really willing to sit here and spam cats until I got them all to be the identical type of cat, so I didn't care. I'm okay with them all looking different, even though in the movie they should all be one type of squirrel, obviously. The floor is a little tricky. Doing it on the an axis here. Originally I only had 4 of these white swirls. There should have been more. And then I was putting it off and putting it off, and I finally added in the other 4. They don't look as good as these ones right here. I think this is a really good shape. These ones look a little bit clunky, but if you don't stare at it too long, I think it gives off the right effect of it being a nice little, swirly design. And then of course we have the very ominous drop down the garbage chute into the incinerator. And once you get onto the glass elevator ride, I actually have all of the nut rooms modeled. In the movie, there's actually 6 of these that you see briefly, the exterior of. So I have all 6 of them, and I actually have in the movie, once again, you see it for like a second or two, of all of the garbage pipes actually converge into the incinerator at the bottom. So I actually do have that built, and that's what we'll be looking at in the next video. But yeah, I'm really happy with how this turned out. This is one of my favorite areas in the factory for sure. And then let's see here, we'll go back up. And then this is where the glass elevator ride starts, but that is going to be for the next video. So I want to thank you for sticking around to the end if you did, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I also hope to see you in the next video. Thank you.